On today's episode of Bronco Sports Chat, we'll recap the Hastings College Broncos baseball season. Stay tuned. You're watching Bronco Sports Chat.
Ball is thrown complete to Nathan Alt. Touchdown, Hastings College Broncos.
He's a young guy getting in.
What a play! What a dunk!
Dug out by Kenny. Ball's gonna be set up for Kabir. And this play's going nuts!
Welcome back to Bronco Sports Chat. Joining me today are Ross Struess and Michael Grant. The Broncos started non-conference play going 2-2 in the beginning of February. They then proceeded to drop 3 of 4 to Metro before losing 7 straight through the middle of March. Through the rest of non-conference play, the Broncos were 4-7 up until March 30th. They did, however, start conference play hot, going 3-1. However, throughout the rest of conference play, they went 2-13. The Broncos are currently way in the red in terms of their winning percentage and are not looking good to start this year. Now guys, you've heard how the season has gone so far for the Broncos. That in mind, tell us what you think of the Broncos' collective season.
Well, Nico, I think disappointing to this point. Last year, Coach Bovie took this team and made them into the regular season GPAC champions, Mike, and that's really disappointing because for the most part they got the same crew back this year and just weren't able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's just really tough sometimes when you're expecting to do well and just sometimes all the pressure just gets to you.
You know, errors being a big factor this year.
The main factor, actually.
The main factor. But I think one of the things that was really interesting is I did an interview with Coach Bovie towards the beginning of the year, and he graded his team out at a C-, which not too bad for how they started. I mean, they played the #1 team to start off this year, only lost by 1 run. But he said the pitching was good, outfield's good, infield defense horrible. Thoughts on that?
Well, looking at some of the stats, that is true because our infield is the one that's taking the most errors. I mean, our outfielders are doing their job by getting the fly balls and tracking everything down, getting the ball back in the infield as soon as they can. Just kind of hard when the pitchers just walks a guy maybe on first base and they get the routine down play and they can't field it.
Yeah, all in all, would you classify this as disappointing too?
Yes, it's very disappointing this year.
And I guess I'm not really sure what they have to do to fix it. I mean, errors are something that, is it a mental game or is it something you really need that you can fix in practice?
So some errors can, like, you just go about your business every day and just do your job on the infield, and you can be a really great infielder if you just do that. But sometimes when you get an error, you think about it too much, and all of a sudden, here's the next one. Well, I'm thinking about that last one, and you just kind of got to live in the future and kind of in baseball, because if you live in the past, you're not going to succeed very well.
That's true, Nico. So I think all in all, just disappointing so far this year.
Now, is there anything else, Ross and Mike, that you think was a key issue that plagued the Broncos all year?
Oh, lots of things, Mike. Well, let's start out right here. In the first inning, the Broncos have been outscored by 13 runs, 38-25. Moved to the third and fourth innings to, still early in the game, about midway. Third inning, they've been outscored by 27 runs, 43-16, and then in the fourth inning, 46-26. That's 20 runs, Mike. They're letting themselves get down early, and they have to try to dig themselves out of holes. That's not very conducive to a win.
Well, especially when you get down right off the bat. It's just, once you give up 5-6 runs in the first 4 innings, and it's just no offense can come back from that. It's just, no matter how good your offense can be, because our Broncos can have a good offense. We have had a couple of games where we have had a good offense. But no matter what team you are, if you get down by that much, it is very rarely that you come back.
And I think it's interesting that the offenses seem to do better, once they get out of that, first inning to 6th inning stretch right there. To point that out, through the first 6 innings, the visitors have scored 225 runs, where the Broncos have only scored 125. So through those first 6, being outscored by 100 runs, we just talked about how they had to dig themselves out of many holes. But 7th through 12th innings, the Broncos have an advantage by 9 runs. So they don't do too bad in the second half of the game if they don't get themselves to that early disadvantage.
Yeah, especially if they can get the game to extra innings. I mean, set games are usually 7 innings long, and once the passes that mark, we can actually have a chance to win that game because we're actually hitting better. We're playing better once the game is on the line. But once we're out in the first few innings, where the game doesn't really matter, you're just getting the feel for the game, we just aren't executing anything anymore.
And I think speaking of games where they've gotten the hole early, last week, April 18th, they played York and were 5 in the hole early, and I believe the final score of that game was 10-0. So there's a perfect example of, you know, just getting in there and not being able to get out.
Yes, yes, yes.
So Nico, I hope that answers your question.
All right, that does it. Stay tuned. You're watching Bronco Sports Chat. Welcome back to Bronco Sports Chat. Now, Ross and Mike have already voiced their opinions on how they think the Broncos have done so far. However, Nick Strickland has sat down with head coach Jim Boeve to hear his thoughts on the season so far from the coach's perspective.
You guys won the GPAC regular season title last year and only lost a couple of key players, so what were your expectations going into the season?
Well, you know, our expectations were that we were going to compete for it again. And, you know, and that's not to poo-poo the ability of the guys we lost. But we had a lot of guys returning, and I mean, I think we made a real effort in the fall to address, you know, the vacancies, you know, that losing some of those players did. You know, obviously we're not in a position right now that we thought we were going to be in. I mean, we thought we were going to go in the last 2 weeks playing for a conference title. Now we're just trying to play to get into a conference tournament. So I think we're all disappointed with that. I think we're somewhat frustrated with that. Now, mathematically, we're still alive to get into the conference tournament if we can. Anything can handle, but I don't think anybody on our team would say this has gone like we expected it to go.
And what do you think the biggest reason for that is, that you guys haven't been playing the way you thought you would?
Well, I don't know if I can give you one big reason. I think number one is you forget that a lot of things went your way to win a conference title.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily luck. You know, sometimes it's things you did. Sometimes it's things the other team did or didn't do. Sometimes it is you just played the right team on the right day. And a lot of those little things are not going our way. You know, last year we won every one-run game. This year we're losing those one-run games. You know, we've got some young guys that we're counting on that, you know, it's a big jump up to play college baseball. And so they're dealing with that. They can be inconsistent. And I think a lot of our returning guys are not quite putting up the numbers that we thought they were going to, or that they hoped they were going to. And so I think it's a combination of things that has led us to this situation.
The defense hasn't been that solid at times this year. What does that do for a game when sometimes you can't rely on your defense?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, we've committed 47 more errors than our opponents, which is a huge number in baseball. And I think what it's done is it's put a burden mentally on our defensive players, and I think it's put a burden on our pitchers. You know, our pitchers, I think, feel like they have to pitch too well, that you know, the defense isn't as solid as it needs to be, that we don't always get that double play to get us out of tough innings and stuff. So I think that's where a lot of our problems on the field started, is that we were erratic defensively. Now, since the league has started, you know, it's gotten a little better, but it's still there. You know, the biggest thing we're dealing with now is the mental baggage from the weekends that we have not played very well.
So you said mathematically you guys are still alive for the conference?
Well, not for the conference title, but to get into the conference tournament.
Okay. So what do you think you need to do from this point on to get yourself in a shot at the postseason? Well,
from a mathematical standpoint, I think if we won 6 out of 8, we'd get in. You know, I think if we win 5 out of 8, we got a chance. You know, from a playing standpoint, you know, all 3 of our areas are not as strong as we'd like them to be. And to think we're going to be, you know, strong in those areas, what we just need to do is eliminate the timely mistakes and be a little better. You know, be a little better situationally hitting, be a little better defensively. You know, pitch a little better, and I think, you know, we can be in the mix. And then if you get in the conference tournament, if you get hot, I mean, you talk about the 97 team, or, you know, 98 team, excuse me, we don't win the conference title, but we get hot in the conference tournament. That can happen too. So, I mean, that's where we're at right now. And
final question, what grade would you give the team this year as far as just overall abilities?
Boy, I'd say I'd have to give us about a C- right now, because I think we've played below expectations. You know, if we had played at expectations, I'd say you're looking at a C+, B-. If you exceeded, you go in the A. But, you know, I think if you ask some of our seniors, they'd give themselves below that. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You bet. No problem. Well, I kind of enjoyed talking about some.
Thank you, Nick. This is Bronco Sports Chat, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the baseball season. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Bronco Sports Chat. Now we're going to go to a much more fun part of the show where we play the one-word game. I'll ask the contestants a question and they have to respond with one and only one word. Ross, Mike, shake hands while I head to the scoreboard. Give me one word to describe how a pitcher feels after an error is committed.
Nico, my word is disappointed. Whenever a pitcher comes out there, even if he gets hit off of 9 times out of 10, it's going to be an out, thrown out. But when somebody messes up on the infield defense and makes an error and lets somebody on base, that's bad anytime that happens.
So, Nico, my word is unfortunate, because when you make a great pitch to get an out and the team does not get your out that you made that great pitch to get, you feel unfortunate because you just made a great pitch to get that out.
Mike, despite the fact that you're a pitcher and you actually sometimes should know what's going through your head when an error is committed, I have to disagree, because simply being unfortunate would say it's up to chance. I have to go with Ross on this one and say it's disappointing, and the pitcher is going to be disappointed because there's something that can be done about it, and unfortunately it wasn't. First round point goes to Ross. What is one word to describe Gabe Salas' performance as starting shortstop this year?
Nico, my word is poor. I know Gabe leads the team in errors right now, and for someone in such a crucial position on the team, that's not something that I think Coach Bovie should really have him in there at this point. Try something new. If he keeps throwing errors, they're going to keep losing games, because infield defense is their problem. You got to make a change somewhere and start where you're weakest at.
Nico, my word is pitiful, because that's the best position to play is shortstop. It gets the most ground balls. It's the leader on the team, and if your leader on the team has the most errors, it leads to almost everybody else having the most errors. So that's why it is pitiful.
Yet again, I'm going to have to go with Ross on this one. Mike, to outright call a guy's performance pitiful, I think is disrespectful to the fact that the guy's a starting shortstop at the collegiate level. He's obviously doing the best he can. To call it pitiful is downright rude. I think poor is a more accurate justification of his performance. Give me one word to describe the Broncos' plans for next year.
Nico, my word is reload. This is a team that came here into this season from last year being the regular season GPAC champs. Didn't lose a whole lot of people, had some shuffling around for who the starters were, but there's really no reason why they can't turn it around. They need to get back to fundamentals. If they do that and reload those positions, I think they stand a chance to head back to the top.
Nico, my word is improvement, because we've already had a poor year this year. So if we improve every position next year, improve our hitting, improve our defense, we will be a better team next year.
Mike, you're going to be happy because you're actually going to get the point on this one. The reason being, not that your answer was especially good, but Ross, I don't think they necessarily need to reload. That implies that they're going to add more and more players as next year goes along, and I don't think that's going to be the case at all. Instead, they're going to have to do like Mike said, and they're going to have to focus on improving their team, not just reloading it. They've already got good players. They just need to play to their potential. Third round point goes to Mike. Give me one word to describe producer Kirk Orndorff's chances at making the varsity team next year.
Nico, my word is likely. With Gabe Salas not playing great at shortstop, Kirk has a chance of getting in there, and with the outfielders leaving, Kirk came into college as an outfielder, and I think there's a good shot he's going to be able to play.
Nico, my word is no, because after 3 years, if you're still on JV, you ain't going to be playing varsity senior year.
No? Really, Mike? When I was in high school, I didn't make varsity until my senior year. Now, I'm not going to hold that against you, but I'm going to say simply saying no, you're dealing with absolutes, and only Siths deal in absolutes, and you're just flat wrong. I think Kirk has a pretty good chance. He's an outfielder and a shortstop, and quite frankly, shortstop's not looking too hot for the Broncos right now. Kirk's got a chance, even if it's slim, it's still a lot better than no. Give me one word to describe the Broncos pitching staff going into next year.
Nico, my one word is loaded. All I have to do is say that, I talked to Coach Bovie earlier in this year, and he's admitted that the pitching staff is really pretty good, and the only person who'll be leaving at the end of this year is Kirby Wells. So for the most part, the Broncos pitching staff will remain loaded for the season next year.
Nico, my word is depends. It depends on how healthy our pitchers can stay this summer and this next fall, and if they're able to pitch next year at a better level, we will be better. But if not, then we will not. So it depends on how we stay healthy, on if we stay healthy.
The fifth and final point goes, not that it matters, but to Ross yet again. Mainly because while I don't necessarily think the Broncos pitching staff is loaded, no disrespect to their staff, I did see them pitch and they do have some pretty nasty stuff. But all in all, I think Ross gets the point on this one just because depends is a horribly vague answer. It doesn't tell me anything about your true opinion on it, Mike, and at the point at which you don't even give me your actual opinion, I simply can't give you the point. So the fifth and final point goes to Ross, making the final score of this game Ross with 4 and Mike with just a lowly 1. As you can see from the score, Ross is yet again the champion. Ross, congratulations. The first time me and you played one word against each other, you beat me narrowly. Today, you didn't have nearly as good competition and came out well ahead. Congratulations, Ross, for your second win in the one-word game. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start Around the Cooler here on Bronco Sports Chat. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Bronco Sports Chat. You'll notice the set looks a little bit different because it's time for our final segment of the night, Around the Cooler. At this point of the show, everyone will get 30 seconds to talk about whatever they want related to Broncos baseball. Joining us as they have been for the entire show is Ross Struess and Michael Grant. Michael, we'll start with you.
So my thing is that we need to, for Broncos baseball, is just to fix up our defense for this last couple of games, get some momentum going into next year. I mean, I don't know, we're already out of the playoffs and everything, so just maybe get some of the young guys in there to play to see how they look under a varsity type game. So that's really all I have.
My 30 seconds is going to be a little bit of a rant. Last year, the Broncos, as I said earlier in the show, took home the regular season GPAC title. They didn't lose a whole lot of players, and this year they just haven't been able to put together a season. They started conference play this year 3-1, which was really pretty good considering who they play. The two teams they played were at the top of the conference at the time, but they haven't really been able to have any sustained runs. And I'm not sure what this really comes down to, but I think Coach Bovie needs to make a change in their infield defense. That's what's causing their problems. And if they hope to get back on the winning track, they got to get back to fundamentals. So those are the two things that I think they need to do.
I'm gonna go back to the way my high school coach taught us to play baseball when we were all seniors, and that's just that you need to have fun with the game. For a lot of these guys, this may be the last couple years that they ever play baseball at an organized competitive level. And for them, the key to being successful, I believe, is gonna forget that it's a competition, have fun playing the game, and do what they've been taught to do their entire lives. They made it to a collegiate baseball level for a reason. They need to stick with it, and then I believe the Broncos can be a successful baseball team. Thank you for joining us tonight for Bronco Sports Chat. For more, go to hcsports.wordpress.com. Join me tonight with Ross Struess and Michael Grant. I'm Nico Zarowski. Until next time when we discuss softball, this is all of us here at Bronco Sports Chat for HC Media.